I'm honored to be here. I just looked at the mug that I'm drinking my tea out of, and it's one my son gave me. So you can see that he lives in North Carolina, and I'm here in Colorado. So I do have a connection to North Carolina. But my story briefly is I was diagnosed with stage 3A non-small cell lung cancer adenocarcinoma in October of 2018. I am a fitness trainer and a health educator. I have a master's in health education, and my husband's a primary care physician. So this really blindsided us. I had no idea, and neither did he, that I could be at risk for lung cancer. So we had to kind of learn a lot as we went on, and got involved in advocacy because we felt that maybe our story. I look at us as a team, and so does he. That we were both trained in prevention, yet we had no idea that lung cancer could be a risk for either one of us, and have again learned a lot. And my husband has been involved in kind of reteaching primary care here in Colorado, doing a continuing medical education that was mandatory for his medical group, which includes like over 500 primary care physicians, to get lung cancer much higher up on a differential diagnosis list for people who don't seem to fit the stereotype or what the guidelines suggest. So he's been able to make an impact here in Colorado, and I became friendly with some other advocates here. I'm kind of the older one of the bunch. They're much younger than I am, and stage 4. And I began to think, what can we do to, increase awareness, and what are our hospitals in Colorado doing? And so over the summer or even late spring, we were kind of inquiring, with our medical groups, and with several of the other advocates are attached to the University of Colorado. And we were either getting brushed off or getting some very insulting replies. One that set me off, we were getting very close to Lung Cancer Awareness Month, was at the end of September. And I noticed on a Instagram post that they had, the university had lit up their campus in red. It was spectacular. And it was for blood cancer awareness for September. And so I inquired, wow, this is amazing. What do you plan to do for lung cancer awareness in November? And not necessarily expecting them to light up a building, but just what are you doing? And the response I got was, well, our parking lot lights are white and we turn them on every night. And that, in a sense, is recognizing lung cancer awareness every day of the year. And I thought, wow, not only was that disrespectful and dismissive, but it was very hurtful. And I just, had a tantrum. And my husband, who's just a very sweet man, always, such a great caretaker, had taken up woodworking about the time that I was diagnosed, giving him some sort of an outlet, to work on something constructive, yet get some pounding out in there. And wood came to mind, and I just had this tantrum, and I just said, I wish you could make me a great big white ribbon, out of wood that I could stick on our door. And I don't have to ask permission to do any of that. It's our property, we can do that. And before I knew it, like 2 hours later, he comes out with like this type of thing, just the back. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's great. And he goes, well, I'm going back to the store and I'm going to go get some spray paint and paint it. So he painted it and put it up on our door. And it was just this white ribbon. And I thought, well, it's not good enough like that. It has to say lung cancer awareness on it, because people don't know. I had even asked my doctor, a radiation oncologist, if he knew what the color was and when the awareness month was. And he was very embarrassed to tell me that he did not. And so, I informed him. And so there's this white ribbon. I take a picture of it and I send it to my daughter, who studied marketing, and she's in Ohio. And she said, Mom, it has to say lung cancer awareness. I go, I understand that, but I'm showing you this because I want to know if you have a particular stencil company you like to work with. Or she goes, oh, I'll make you a label. You're not doing that with a stencil. We want it to look good, polished. So she had a label machine. And when she printed the label, it came out just the outline of the label. So she starts coloring this in with Sharpie, and then she mails it from Ohio to me. I slapped that on the ribbon, put it up, and it looks great. I took a picture then and I put it on a private Facebook group for the advocates here in Colorado that I'm friendly with. And we used to, before the pandemic, go out to lunch, maybe, once a month, whoever could make it. And I just said, well, here's what I did, with our frustrations. I did this for myself because I could control it and I don't have to ask permission. And you guys, gosh, what could you do? You could tie a ribbon around your tree, a white ribbon, or your mailbox. And what I got back was, well, gosh, would your husband make one for us? And so what turned into one additional one, then to 5, then to 20. And then my daughter was still sending me these labels that she was coloring in, and it was taking her forever. And she said, at this point, Mom, let's find a sticker company. So she found a sticker company that was able to make us weatherproof, UV-proof stickers. And there we go. So we turn it around and here's what we have now. And this is our newest sticker. We stayed with the old font, but we wanted it to say the White Ribbon Project on it now, because all of this evolved kind of on its own. I mean, I never had a plan to, put together a national awareness campaign. I mean, why not? But I wasn't planning that. It was just, I wanted to have some control in being able to talk about this and start conversations. And then before I knew it, it was all over Colorado. And I showed up with it. If Paula is here, I showed up with it at a longevity support group meeting. It was sort of sitting in the background, like Dusty's is there. And I just said, well, if anyone wants one. And I had a few people that said yes, and I just shipped them to them. And now we're at the point where Pierre and I have made 498 of them. They are all across the country. They're in Canada. We have a group in Canada now who is actually making them, and they're staying to the dimensions, absolutely. And so it all looks the same. And people have had their own ideas with them. One of the earlier advocates to get one lived in Boston, and he thought, wow, I could do great things with this. And if any of you have younger children, maybe you're familiar with the Flat Stanley series, where you would go with Flat Stanley. So he was taking his ribbon to the major hospitals, taking a picture, tagging them, thank you for all you're doing in lung cancer research and treatment. Or he would go stand in front of pharmaceutical companies, and we were tagging these places. And then they were like, well, what's that about? And so we came up with a mission statement, and I'll read it to you. It's pretty simple, and so people can know what it is. And I can send you a copy of this too. Maybe Lynn can send it out to you. The mission is very simple. The White Ribbon Project promotes awareness about lung cancer by changing public perception of the disease. Anyone with lungs can get lung cancer. Our goal for 2021 is to unify the disparate lung cancer community by forming the White Ribbon Project as a means to increase awareness by sharing the white ribbons and the White Ribbon Project logo, which we're working on, and with lung cancer advocacy groups, healthcare institutions, and other supporters to increase public recognition of the white ribbon as a lung cancer symbol. So as I saw this evolving across the country, that people wanted it, what was striking to me was people wanted to stand up and show they had lung cancer with this ribbon. It was kind of not only empowering them, but I thought, wow, across the country, not only people are standing up taking pictures, but they're putting it on social media. And they're asking their doctors if they could take pictures with them, who they were happy to. And I thought, sounds kind of stigma busting to me. If you are not ashamed of having lung cancer and you stand up, then people see us, they listen to our stories, and we are no longer hidden. And again, as a public health educator and my husband looking at this as primary care, and he also has a master's in public health in health education, it was like, what have we done in the past? You know, and I remember working with the AIDS HIV community back in the early 90s, and talk about a stigma, you know, and people then started standing up, and their families stood up with them. Not in the beginning, their families disowned them, but the people who cared for them, and they demanded to be taken care of. And where has the lung cancer community been? I mean, I don't know. I'm new to this. Many of you are, you know, have been involved in the lung cancer, you know, have had lung cancer for a very long time, and who have, you know, dealt with the, I don't know, maybe the roadblocks you felt that were there. But I'm looking at it again as a health educator way back. And it took the courage of people to stand up, show who they were, humanize this disease, and get people to understand that there were real people, real families standing behind these statistics. And the power in this that has evolved on its own, again, I didn't think ahead and plan. You heard the mission is all evolving. It's like it's our natural tendency to want to not stand up and say, oh yeah, I'm proud to have lung cancer. I don't know that anybody is proud to have a disease, but I'm not ashamed of this. And if you're not ashamed of this and you're willing to talk, people want to listen. You know, people aren't just like, oh, I don't want to hear about that. You know, you guys all did this to yourself. It's like, no, don't you want to learn? How, if it happened to me, it could happen to any of you. And do you want to listen to my story? And some people have said, you know what? I'm so glad I listened to your story, because you know what? You're actually really scary, because you are the person that, you know, have lived a totally healthy lifestyle. I'm probably the most boring person on the planet. I don't even drink. You know, everything's been very, very, I had heart disease in my family. And so I've been driven, you know, people died early of heart attacks in my family. So it was like, I'm going to be fit, I'm going to eat clean so I can, you know, not succumb to that. And then boom, I get stage 3 lung cancer. Whoever would have thought? And so if it could happen to me, it could happen to them. And my son, who lives in North Carolina, the first thing he asked after we told him the news, you know, given he knew how he grew up, had to eat well and exercise, was, what is the radon level of the house, Mom? He's an environmental engineer. I go, the what? I don't know what you're talking about. And he educated me. We had the house tested, and it was twice the recommended level on, you know, on the high end, living in the house over 20 years. And the first thing that came into my mind was, oh my gosh, my kids, that basement was their playroom, their teenage hangout, a place that I maybe went down once a week to help pick it up, but I didn't spend a whole lot of time down there. And then I started to think about screening. Oh my gosh, my son's 32 years old. Can he get screened? The women I've met in Colorado were diagnosed stage 4 in their early 30s. I mean, maybe my son is walking around with this. And then I learned, no, he won't qualify for screening. And so it just got our wheels turning between my husband and myself. And I want to share that, you know, some people are like, oh, so you hold up a white ribbon, big deal, it's not going to change anything. We have 3 hospitals now that have changed their screening protocol since this. If you look at their screening surveys now, the first question asked is, do you have do you have a relative who's had lung cancer? The second question is, do you have a high radon level in your house? And then they get down to tobacco towards the end. So I'm not saying that they're opening it up, that everybody who wants a low dose CT is going to get one. But what they've opened up is the concept of shared decision making, that if you have concerns that you could be at risk for lung cancer, that we want to talk to you and we want to figure out the best way forward. So we are making progress on things, and we, have a list of, what if that's their first step, what else could we get them to do? And we have noticed more social media posts about lung cancer. I mean, we're February now. I thought, okay, it's going to be November, they're going to stop, and they're still doing it. So I think that we have the power as people who have lung cancer, or we love people who have lung cancer, to change things. It is community driven. I believe we can do this. We have to keep going. We have to keep going. It's an old concept my mother taught me. If you don't ask, you're not going to get. And if we have this symbol that's unifying us, and we're not saying, okay, well, this is just for people who have a particular mutation, or this is for people who, have never smoked. No, we all have lung cancer. That is what unifies us. And we have the #1 cancer killer. So if we're unified and we all stand up as, what is the number? Close to 230,000 diagnoses every year. That's really powerful. That's incredibly powerful. And, it would be my dream if one day, we can get enough ribbons to everyone who's diagnosed. I was alone. My husband and I felt very alone the first 10 months of my diagnosis. I always say "our" because he's so, involved in this. I remember going to my oncologist, who's very well respected here in Colorado, and even going to second opinion to a very well respected physician there that you all know his name, but not one of them told me about support. And I remember asking my oncologist, because I'm the type who, does well with support groups and feeling not alone. And he said, well, all we have is the American Lung Association, and those people are much older than you, and it's not going to be a good fit. So I kind of suffered in silence for the first 10 months until I found this group of women, and not through an advocacy organization. I found them by chance. It was my cousin who knew someone who was a 32-year-old, healthy pregnant woman when she was diagnosed at stage 4. And I met her, and then she introduced me to, the large advocacy organization. So that was like 10 months of not knowing. And wouldn't it be something if at diagnosis, sometimes we're not ready, our heads are spinning, but, within the time, you're getting started with things, that you get something, like this. And in the back, maybe it has the names of the organizations across the country and their website information, or, this is all an evolution now. These are just kind of thoughts that I'm having. We're in the process of trying to get a website put together. So if people want a ribbon, they can just go there. Right now, I'm just telling people, tell them to contact me either through Facebook, or here's my email address. They can email me. And actually got a hit last night from someone who lives in Asheville, who's been on this journey for a little less than a year and who feels lost. So I'd like to get her information to Dusty, to Lynn, to find out what would be the closest one for her to connect to, or in general right now because of the pandemic, but once the pandemic's over, because she goes, I could really use that, face to face, and get her connected and get her a ribbon. And so my North Carolina connection, my son, was my birthday about a week and a half ago, and surprised me with a photo of a bunch of white ribbons on his deck in the backyard that had just been painted and not labeled. And so his birthday present was, he and his wife made 20 ribbons for distribution. They're ready to be picked up now. So Dusty and I have talked a little bit, and I want to make sure that, the advocacy organizations in North Carolina right now are communicating as to, who can get these right now. And more are on the way. Okay. But right now that's what's ready to be picked up, and go from there. So does anyone have any questions? I know that was a lot.